Hello, students. It's our third and last lectures for mostly 5 course radiation medicine. But the same lesson we have in a third course, radiology, biological effects of ionizing radiation. If you're ready, you have options like use pause and write some information in the conspect. I maybe check which information most important for you and listen several times, work with your conspect and students which I work, I ask orally about most important information from this lecture. And other teachers ask you to. It's very important lesson, biological action of ionizing radiation. Because in 5 course, you more often work with consequences after radiation exposure. In a third course, we will, and we work now with diagnostic method, with using radiological method of diagnostic. And understanding what happens with our organism, with our cells, organs, tissues, and so on, understanding why something happened after radiation. It's very important, as I think, and I hope that you continue think about it all time when you will be a doctor for your life. So, uh, biological action of ionizing radiation. It's special scientists, bioradiology it's named. It's scientists who finish biological department of university, and after this they have postgraduate stage. So they know more than simple biological scientists because it's some different knowledge, and this knowledge need more physics, mathematics, and another science. It's another part in medicine closely to biological. And these scientists study the effects of all kinds of ionizing radiation on the living organism and biosphere at all. And bioradiology, it's a complex of scientific subjects which closely connected with other disciplines like biology, physiology, genetics, pathophysiology, biophysics, and nuclear physics. Biological effect of ionizing radiation is the ability to cause functional and morphological changes in the tissues, organ, and at the last organism upon the wall. Sometimes this changing continue for a long period after radiation exposure, and we need to understand which completely dose of radiation exposure were used in this variant. So you know that for a first changing happens functional, and just after this, after some changing in functional, beginning a morphological change. So step by step, going from cell to organisms, we working what happens. To remember that we have several variants of radiation, most important is alpha, beta, and gamma waves and X waves. Alpha particles heavy and they stop just after paper. Beta particles more strongly and they go through the paper, and inside some stuff like our organism can weigh can rate about 1 or 2 centimeters in organs, and gamma waves very strong go through the body through the all another material and can be stopped just in the metal with a very strong molecular structure like lead. And depending of kind of radiation, depending of dose of radiation, we work and talk about one or another difference happening in the cells. There are three stages of the process. It's physical, chemical, and biological stages. First of all, it's physical stage. It's very short, continue from some small part of seconds, and this process of absorption energy and ionizing of exciting atoms or molecules. So it's like some accident when electron shift and destroying and just first meeting with some cells. In this stage, beginning the process of radiolysis of water. Radiolysis forms the molecular ions with positive and negative abilities. Second one, it's chemical stage. It's also very short, continue from some small part of seconds or during to 1 second. This is stage of formation free radicals and interaction between them. This is stage of damaged molecules. What happens after some accident, if we imagine, it's some attack, and after this beginning the process to destroy. And the presence of oxygen, the increase of ionizing radiation increases. This phenomenon was named oxygen effect. And the third one, biological stage, is biological and continuous from seconds, hours, and sometimes long years. It's all depending on dose of radiation, depending on radiosensitivity, organism cells, and so on. In this stage have place the different biochemical and morphological changes, and it can lead to pathology of tissues, organs, or whole body. So, for your conspect, I want that you write all three stages of ionizing, biological ionizing effect of radiation, and have to explain orally what it means. Biological action of ionizing radiation. What happens? Ions, as well as the excited atoms, have the increased chemical activity and quickly interact with natural molecules and atoms. This stage of primary radioactive chemical transformation of molecules begins. Two mechanisms can underline it: direct and indirect effect of penetration radiation. Going closely to understanding process radiolysis of water. I hope you remember that all our cells and most of our organism consist from water. In 1 hour cells, in about 70% of water in cytoplasm. All our organism, in all our organs, we have a lot of molecules of water. And what happens with these molecules after attack of electron? It's destroying and divided to several electrons. It's hydroxygen, OH grow, HO2 grows, and continue. So let's imagine molecule of water consists from 2 atoms of hydroxygen and 1 atom of oxygen. So we have three simple atoms. After this, what happens in our organism? Our organism all time have to and want to be repaired, want to be good. And these three atoms, try to repair to go to normal molecule of water. But we talk just now about one molecule of water, but in real life, the same situation happens with a lot of molecules of water. So we have billions atoms of hydroxygen, billions atoms of oxygen, and in this time they all try to repair it and going to more strongly grow. And what happens as a result? After destroying for atom of hydroxygen and oxygen, we have inside our organism, instead of molecule of water, oxygen group, hydroxy radical, and molecular hydrogen, and as a result, more strongly two atoms of hydroxygen and two atoms of oxygen, it more strongly stuck after destroying molecule of water. We have peroxide. It's the process of radiolysis of water. It was happened after radiation exposure. It's happened in all variants of radiation exposure, but depending of area, depending of dose, this process may be safe for our organism or it may be dangerous. Of course, if we talk about high dose of radiation, and when we talk about acute radiation sickness, we talk that acute radiation sickness is disease after high dose of radiation for all body. So process like radiolysis of water happens in more organs and system in one time. And this effect is very dangerous for organism at all. And acute radiation sickness is very dangerous disease. It's very difficult to treat. Let's remember why it's so dangerous and why it's so difficult to treat. What it means peroxygen. What it is. It's the some material which we use in aseptic for aseptic our skin when we work in surgical for treatment some for problem with the skin, for cleaning all our materials. So it's very important in medicine material, but it's very toxic for all bacteriums, organisms, aerobic, anaerobic, and so on. It's poison. It's very strong poison, most of the strongly in the world. And the same material we have inside our cells after radiation exposure. It's why so important understanding why radiation may be so dangerous for us, because destroying inside our cells process when changing molecules of water to molecules of hydroxygen. Instead of water, we have very strong poison inside our organism. It's all important to understand what happens and why it's so dangerous. So this then more molecules with peroxygen inside, then more morphological changing and more destroying organic structure molecules. And after this, step by step, after one cell destroying and poison around inside and around another cells, after this another cells and one and one and one. So in the one place, the billion of cells destroying after their inciting process. It's why so important understand and have to write this formula, how it's happened, and have to understand. It's one of the reasons why we use radiation to treatment cancer diseases, because we destroy cells from inside to outside. It's why cancer we can finish and treat by radiation, because we can. But one more time, when we destroying cancer cells in the organism, we use radiation just for one area of organism. It's anywhere not more than 10 centimeters diameter. Because if we work, for example, we imagine that we give radiation exposure for half of the organisms, we understand it that process inside cells, it can be stopped. It's very dangerous for the patient, and we, instead of treat it, we just give some poison inside cancers inside patient. So one more time, radiation for treatment uses high dose. We use this process, this physiological process of destroying molecule of water in treatment cancer diseases, but just in small area of organism. We never can use it more than some around. So effect happens in the cells after radiolysis of water, it names oxygen effect. It's like cells without breath. Cells without hydroxygen and oxygen in formal in structure of water, it's cells without breath. So it's named oxygen effect or hypoxia. One more time, what means oxygen effect? It's aggravation of radiation damage of biological object at the increased contents of oxygen in comparison with the results of their irradiation in conditions of hypoxia. To remember the structure of our cells, cytoplasm, and a lot of organelles inside. Cytoplasm, more than 90% consists from water. Another structure uses water too in the structure of their cells, and inside that cells it's nucleus. I think you remember, sorry that this slide in Russia, but very coloristic picture like our nucleus, it's a middle of the life of our cells, nucleus and nucleus inside, and a lot of organelles around in cytoplasm, they all with more important functional, and we can't exclude which of them for their functional activity and cells, and that all its lysosome, Golgi apparat, Golgi, peroxisome, microfibs, fibs, lysosomes, mitochondria, and so on. Inside our middle of life nucleus, we have DNA and RNA. So we have our genetic material. And radiation. So one phase of radiation destroying, it was radiolysis of water at destroying the structure of cells, and another size if cells continue to be alive after radiation exposure, and this poison can destroy it at all, some changing beginning inside the nucleus. What is the changing? It's radiation exposure effect of center of life of the cells. We have chromosomes, 46 chromosomes or 23 pairs of chromosomes, and this is a picture of normal chromosomes. Radiation destroying them in some or another variants, and now we're talking with completely variant, it happens. If you remember, the first scientist who described the structure of DNA, it was Watson and Crick. They was Nobel Prize for their discovery and their knowledge. Even now, even with the period of coronaviruses, you know that it's RNA viruses, and now you're understanding what important role of RNA, DNA, understanding molecular structure and genetic structure, how it's important in our real life and how important part of genetics in medicine at all. So DNA consists from four basic, and this is a picture of closely to real understanding how it's as small as big, about several kilometers. If we're drawing in the one line, it's about several kilometers, but it's so small and have so special form that it's in our one chromosome. And for basic and ligaments between them. DNA basic, it's cysteine, thymine, adenine, and guanine. It's for our understanding basic and line between them. They are complete between each other by points hydroxygen, like this one. And this is place, it's not very strong place. It's like easier to destroy in part. And most often, even small dose of radiation can destroy this place between these bases. And all another variant of DNA may happen after, damage to DNA after radiation exposure. It's a basic alteration or abasic, or it's maybe single strand break or simple double strand break, complex lessons, and so on. Exposure of the cells. We have several variants after this explosion of the cells. It's all time dependent on dose of radiation. Radiation hits the cell's nucleus. If this dose very small, but cells very strong and have high radio resistance, it's maybe without any changing inside the nucleus. If dose of radiation more, but it's not so big that kill the cells, it's maybe DNA mutation. So after damage of DNA, the same rule in all natural as the world want to repair into normal parts, and it's maybe DNA mutation. It's one of the important part of understanding dangers of radiation exposure, especially at the young period of life or pregnant period of women, to risks of DNA mutation very high. So mutation repaired, it's maybe variable cells, or if dose of radiation high, it's maybe cells death, or it's maybe cell service but mutation. What happens with these cells after some period? It's maybe cancer. So cells after radiation mutation, it's not the rule, but it's very often happen. It's maybe cancer of some germ cancer, leukemia, or another kind of cancer with another organs and system. I several times repeat in this lecture, and for my students I repeated every lesson that dose of radiation, kind of radiation, it's very important factors to understanding what happens later. For example, computer tomography give a lot of give a high dose of radiation exposure for all the body, but important for us, like for doctors, most important our reason, our aim of this method of diagnosis. If we talk about cancer patient, we need as more information as we have to found in 21st century, and we use computer tomography as often as it's necessary for these diseases. For understanding changing after chemical drugs, after chemical therapy, to understanding cleaning of our surgical treatment, to understanding some changing on functionals in other organs in system. So computer tomography with a high dose of radiation, very important in oncological. But for young, healthy people, use method of diagnostic with a high dose of radiation exposure, especially in childhood. It's not good. It's not so safe like another methods of diagnostic without so high dose of radiation exposure, for example, ultrasound or X-ray or MRI or another methods of diagnostic. So all time dose of radiation have to be answered on the question, what most important for us, use radiation or save this patient? And one more time, I repeat that most important 100% of contribution it's for computer tomography, it's pregnant period in the women, because it's maybe and it's will be radiation mutation inside the fetus, and we don't know what happens, but we understand that sometimes it's a very difficult diseases or it's a feature without normal real life. So it's radiation mutation very deep. So outcomes after cells exposure, three variants. It's cell death, mutation repaired, and cells survive but mutate. How is DNA repaired? Our organism use all ferments that they have to repair this destroy. Enzyme glycosylases recognize, lessen, and releases damaged base. AP and nuclear makes incision and releases remain sugar. DNA polymerase fills resulting gap, but nick remains. DNA ligase seals the nick, repair completed. And DNA has been repaired with no loss of genetic information. Ionizing radiation, as a result of direct or indirect effect on molecules of chromosome DNA, can change their structure. Changes occurring in the genetic code of cells after irradiation and transmitted to offsprings are called radiation mutation. The amount of radiation mutation is proportional to dose. As doubling a dose, the percent of mutation is doubled as well. I think that for your conspect, most important, this slide three variant of changing in cell and this one. And for your general understanding what happens, this one. So, ionizing radiation effects on itself. I think it's for your conspect will be useful too. The ruptures in the lipid layer of cellular membrane and foundation thereof. After that begins high penetration and changing in pressure gradient. The destroying of lysosomes and liberation of enzymes. The destroying of mitochondria and decrease of oxidation phosphorylation. It leads to hypoxia. Destruction of other cellular structures. Destruction of many big organic molecules, breaking on synthesis of protein, lipids, and carbons. When have place the breaking of DNA synthesis, follow action is the breaking protein and enzyme synthesis. The synthesis of anatomy, biological action, active substances. The disorganization of canal chromosomes, chromosomes aberration, and destruction of DNA, one or two links ruptures. Then have place in the breaking of DNA synthesis. Follow action is the breaking protein and enzyme synthesis. The origin of division by a chemical reaction and radiological mutation. All this process can lead to damage of cells. We know that have place to reparation process too. The main quality of damages can be restored, even that cells will be lost. During reparation time can active the oncological gen, who was asleep in a repressive conditions. One more time, this slide, why happens cancer after radiation mutation? Because during reparation time can active the oncological gen who was asleep in depressive conditions. What is in the result of this? The reconstruction of normal function of cells and structure of DNA. The cells throw out the bad forms and restore the damage. The full destruction of the cells, the death, its necrosis, apoptosis, and reproduction, death of the cells. All metabolic processes are suppressed and cells loses the ability to keep their homeostasis. And the loss of specific functional of cells, degeneration, and unspecific influence of radiation is decrease of living time. Radiation mutations, which named reparation mistakes. In somatic cells, they lead to cancerogenosis. In sexual cells, they lead to hereditary diseases. If mutation don't touch the living and division abilities of cells, she can divide with future anomaly generation. It's why biological stage of ionizing radiation so long. It's beginning from first second after radiolysis of water and after some variant of radiation mutation. It can be even in life of this organism. It can be some diseases in the child after radiation exposure of parents. Of course, now we don't talk about diagnostic methods of in radiological. It's all time just about all diseases after radiation exposure. It's just after high dose of radiation, or maybe some difference radiosensitivity of organs and changing in the children after radiation exposure of parents. It's of course about high dose of radiation. It's because radiation exposure was abnormal and some cells, some sexual cells after radiation mutation give this genetic information with another population. In this picture, you can see how how it's look destroying of DNA. Our chromosome consists from 4 shoulders, 2 upper shoulders and 2 down shoulders. And all variant, as you can imagine, it may happen after this radiation repair. So, break of down hands like this. After this, what happens after breaking? After some simple parts of chromosomes, they try to repair it. And for example, this go to this part, and we have a new chromosome with another genetic material after radiation exposure. Or this part with this, or some part of shoulder, we lose it. Or if we give more color for chromosomes and can look after them after repairing process, it's maybe different parts. So from one chromosomes to another, it's complete, and we have another chromosomes with another material, not normal, but after radiation exposure. It's all process take not so many time. It's 2 or 3 hours needs for organism to try to repair more destroying chromosomes. And when we talk about analysis of chromosome after some radiation exposure, we have to understand we need more information that it's possible, and we have to understand how in what period, how long it was, how much time it's continuous, and so on. It's a real photo of chromosome repairing after radiation exposure. You can see abnormal chromosomes in this slide. You can see as normal, this one, and abnormal after repairing, like this one with 3 shoulders, or this, and if you look at this photo, you can find normal and abnormal chromosomes. Of course, during our life, we have some changes in our chromosome. And if we take in this, if we look in the photo of chromosomes in the young period of life, for example, 5, 6 years old baby, and in the older man, for example, 70, more than 70, 80, or even 90 years old, you can find a lot of changes in chromosomes in period old patient as control as young baby. Why it's happening? Because during all our life, of course, something happened with our chromosomes. It's like after radiation exposure, because you know that our cosmic radiation and building radiation and radiation around us, it's a lot of dose of radiation depending on place. It's more in the town, but less in the forest. But we all now work in town and stay in the room with our wall and their part of background radiation. And computer tomography and simple X-ray, and all what happened with us during our life with radiation exposure. Our chromosomes remember about it. And the numbers of breaking chromosome, of repairing chromosome increase years after years and after years. So most strongly chromosome and 99% of normal good chromosome, it's in a young period of our life. And after this, depending, of course, of place of our life and period of our life and our physical activity or our busy place at home, our chromosomes change. But after high dose of radiation, after treatment of cancer diseases with radiation exposure, the changes in chromosome bigger than in normal. And we do this analysis. It's not a lot of laboratories in the world where they understand chromosome structure, unfortunately. It's very expensive for, it's very expensive part of medicine. It's need a special, doctors, genetics. It's need physicians. It's need genetics, biological scientists, and so on. And just very rich country understanding that it's necessary part of medicine and it's necessary part for diagnostic, gene analysis, chromosome mutation, and so on. For example, in Ukraine, we have about two big laboratories, one of them in our institute, Medical Institute of Radiology, and another one in Kiev. In the world at all, it's not more than 20 laboratories at all. So it's real less that it's needed for our real life. Why it's so important? Because after some radiation accident, we need information about what happens, what kind it was, what dose it was, and depending on this, we decide if we can help this patient, if we can treat these diseases, or we just help to save a small period of life if it's acute radiation sickness. If you remember, if you listen my previous lesson with acute radiation sickness, we have a very long prodromal period, and during several weeks, we don't know what we have to wait from this patient. And sometimes we think that everything okay, but after this, after 21st day after radiation exposure, beginning anemia, leukopenia, leukocytopenia, and agranulocytosis, and we have a lot of clinical problem, but we lose a time for treat it, for give some antibiotic drugs, some blood drugs, and so on. It's why so necessary to us as early as it possible understanding the chromosome analysis. It's another method to understanding chromosome analysis and fish bending. It's painting inside one part of chromosome. This method allows to determine it intrachromosomes rebuilding. It shows us, its computer program show us how many chromosomes changing, what's completely happened inside them, and what we have to wait. We all time thinking about life of patient. For example, in our hospital, we have we institute and hospital is the same place. We have this scientist work, then we count chromosome changing after radiation exposure for treated cancers. And we need that this analysis we have to do during 2 hours after treatment. It's most important time for us when changing beginning, but it's not finished. as good as we have control of this patient before, and we try use it. We use control of chromosome changing before we began treatment, and control count the morphology, sorry, genetic changing after oncological treatment. What else? How we do this? We use blood, intravenous analysis, blood. After this, we prepare leukocytes, and after this, we prepare a picture like this. We use a different method of diagnostic, use electron microscope, and step by step, place by place, we count and count and count what percent of this picture with some changing, which of them without. And in this picture, in the left place, it's normal chromosomes, but if you look very closely to this, you understand that even in normal picture, we have some abnormal chromosomes, but their numbers, it's not critical for us. It's don't need any medicine treatment. And another picture we can find in blood cells after radiation exposure. So let's count this part. Its complexes more than 5 chromosomes changing after radiation exposure. This and this one and this. So some of this changing, it's not critical for cells and cells repair. Some of them it's critical and it's need more than just more our attention for this patient. This one, it's a normal variant of chromosomes in the blood, and this with the branches you can find the specific to post-radiation mutation in the chromosome. Polychromosomia, it's one of the characteristic changing inside the cells after high dose of radiation exposure. You can see that it's not like in previous slide. It's more and more and more than 46 chromosomes in this period. So all time in radiological, all time in radiation medicine, we come back and give step to biological effect of ionizing radiation. From what it depends. And in this slide, it's place for protect of radiation. And biological action of ionizing radiation dependent from the time irradiation, kind of ionizing radiation, area damage, surface and organs, and individual abilities. What about individual abilities? What most critical period for radiation for our period of our life? It's of course young period of life from 0 to 1 years old baby, and more than 80 years old, because after this it's a lot of physiological mutation, and after this changing it's what else? It's some chronic diseases increase individual abilities. For example, some cardiovascular diseases, or some endocrinological change, or some change in the weather. Then more diseases in this patient, then higher individual radiosensitivity. Depending on dose, all time it's dependent on dose. Small dose of radiation, it's very small dose of radiation, it's every time, every second happen inside us and around us. Then higher dose of radiation, then higher risks consequences after this. So time factor. If we know that something happened with radiation in some area, we have to leave this area as quickly as it possible. Then shorter our contact with radiation exposure, then less our radiation, the less consequences after radiation, because we decrease dose of radiation. Depending on dose, depending on time, and depending of type of radiation. If we talk about alpha radiation, we can use it glass even without gloves and some alpha radiation inside this. If we talk about beta radiation, we protect from lead, we use distance from gloves, I'm sorry, we can use some distance, and we have to clean after our contact with beta radiation, and we don't use beta radiation inside our. If we talk about gamma radiation, it just screened by lead, it just big distance, it just short time, because this wave of radiation gives so quickly, so strongly wave that it's can be dangerous for us. And we don't know what happens. We don't know what kind of dose we use. For example, let's imagine something happened in the atomic factory. Something break them. And people, engineer and workers who were here take some radiation exposure. They go to the hospital, and in the hospital we don't know what dose of radiation after this break. Anybody know? Maybe some dosimeters count, but this is why we need more laboratories with chromosome analysis. We do chromosome analysis for this patient, and we understand the dose of radiation and risks of our next step to help to this patient. Very important another parts of radiation at all. It's radiosensitivity and radioresistance. Let's look what means radiosensitivity and radioresistance. Is the ability of organisms, organs, tissues, and cells to respond to effect of ionizing radiation by functional and morphological at the last changes. There is also another definition of this concept. Radiosensitivity is any recorded response of by a system to radiation effect, irrespective of the significance for the vital activity of an object. We have different radiosensitivity for all our organisms. We have different radiosensitivity during our life. It's more in the most important, it's in the pregnant period, and after this decrease to our age. And just at the end of the life, after 80, 90 years, it's increased one more time because it's the loss of some function of the organism and some old cells. So our cells in organism very different, and some of them very radiosensitive, another one very radioresistant. For example, let's look about two cells. Let's think about two cells, about epithelium cells. Its cells consist from water, a lot of end cells of the bones. Of course, which of them most radiosensitive, consistent from water or with different molecular structure, atom structure, it's bone or cartilage cells. Radiosensitivity is higher in the epithelium cells, in the cells with water. in the divided cells at all. And you remember from your previous course that our cells have different cycles of life. Our cells, like we, get up at the morning and go out at the evening and sleep at night. Different cells, some different cycles of life. Cycles when cells divided, named mitosis, and this is the period of divided. It's most radiosensitive of period of this most radiosensitive period in the cell's life. For example, why we have to know it? Of course, for treatment cancer. We all time come back to cancer because it's very important part of cancer diseases, and it's very important part. We need increase radiosensitivity of cells to treatment cancer and decrease radiosensitivity of cells all another good health cells in these organisms. So several factors to decrease radiosensitivities. We use it for treatment cancer diseases. Linear energy transfer, dose rate, and temperature. It's all factors to increase radiosensitivities. Or it's maybe chemical factors, increase radiosensitivities. It's oxygen and cytotoxic drugs. Decrease radiosensitivity, it's some cysteamine, cysteine, and sulfur. And biological factors, it's used cycle status of cells. G2 and mitosis, it's two-phase when the cells most high radiosensitivities. And synapsis period when cells sleep. It's a period that decrease radiosensitivities and increase radioresistance. Radiosensitivity. There are some kinds of radiosensitivity which depends from age, biological species tissue, and very important scientists who the first understanding dependent between radiosensitivities and process in the cells. It was Bergagneau and Tribandon. They were the first who said the rule, and we use this rule even in our real life. Radiosensitivity of cells and tissues. It's directly proportional to mitotic activity and inversely proportional to degree of their differentiation. What it means? Then more cells then more complexes of these cells, most difficult cells, most differentiated cells, it's more radiosensitive than simple cells. Radiosensitivity of each cell depends on phase of cell's life, and during which radiation takes place. The life cycle of cells consists of 4 phases: the period of DNA synthesis, pre- and post-synthesis phase, and mitosis. The cells has greatest radiosensitivity in the phase of mitosis. In pre-synthetic phase, the sensitivity decreases. In the period of post-synthetic stage, the sensitivity increases again. those organs and systems which are radiation or damages first are called critical. So, to such organs and systems, the bone marrow, intestinal, central nervous system are reviewed. The damage of critical organs, depending on dose, have a graded character. In our body, the marrow, epithelium of intestines, and sexual glands, endocrinal glands are higher radiosensitivity. One more time. In our body, most radiosensitivity cells, it's bone marrow cells, because it's cells divided. It's most divided cells in our organism. Each working during all our period of life give us a new portion of leukocytes, erythrocytes, and thrombocytes at all. And most stronger cells, the bones, cartilage, muscles, it's radio resistance. Very important names and understanding lethal dose. Lethal dose 50-30. What it means? It's dose of radiation which evokes the death on half of parts irradiated organisms. So 50% of population will die after 30 days after radiation exposure. It means lethal dose 50-30. 50%, 30 days. Half of population during 1 month. Why during 1 month? Why not tomorrow, not day after tomorrow? Because bone marrow, because cells of blood, because during this period we have some portion of cells and our erythrocytes have life of period of life, lymphocytes, and so on. And even after radiation exposure, sometimes organism can be like health prodromal period of acute radiation sickness when we have blood from previous working. But after radiation exposure on the blood stem cells and destroying it because it's most radiosensitive cells, we don't have a variant of a new portion of blood. So we count the result of radiation exposure after 1 month, waiting radiosensitivities, individual radiosensitivity of organisms. Why just 50%? Because it's about people, about animal, about anywhere. Some of them in one period of their life, another one in another period of their life. So depending on this period, younger, stronger, older, some traumas, some chronic diseases, depending on all of this, it may be important for individual radiosensitivities. Lethal dose 100% or absolutely lethal dose. For people, it's 6 gray. 6 gray, it's dose of radiation after which people die in 100% before 30 days. The same information, maybe you just read, and I hope that you conspect this understanding lethal dose and lethal dose for humans. It's 2-3 grays for whole body irradiation. For treatment oncological diseases, we use 60 grays, 60. But our absolutely lethal dose is 6, and lethal dose 50, 30, and 2 and 3 grays. Why? Why we can use in 10 times more, and it's everything okay with the patient. When we work offline, I give a time for patient. Now I, like in a movie, Daria Purist or something like this. I am asked and I am answered. Okay, I am answered why we can use 60 grays for treatment cancer, but our absolutely lethal dose is 6 gray. Because in cancer diseases, we divided this dose for small part. Day after day, we use from 1 to 5 grays. And one more time, we use radiation exposure just for small part of organism. We never give radiation exposure for all organisms. Yeah, I talk about high dose of radiation. We use radiation exposure for computer tomography. Yes, but it's not real dose. It's just for memory that we have radiation exposure. It's not real dangerous for us if we use it not very often. But in cancer diseases, we use 60, 80 grays day after day and in a small period, small area of organism. If we give the same for all organisms, of course it will be there. So we have to be very clever, very very good to count dose of radiation. We need a lot of physics and mathematics in our department of cancer treatment because it's very dangerous for the patient. And 1 hour mistake, we can kill the patient after acute radiation sickness or another problem after this hour treatment. Different kind of lethal dose, 50% for 30 days. Let's look who will be alive after atomic war, for example, or after some atomic catastrophe, or even 2 years ago, even we really thinking about new viruses epidemic in our life, and we all work by internet and stay at home and cleaning. No. So we don't know what happened next. I'm not optimistic woman, but we have to know that our radiosensitivities, like most difficult organisms at the world, it's less. It's just 254 grays. And most radio-resistant organism in the world, who will be alive after something happens, if it's something happens, it's bacterium. 3,000 grays. Why? Because it's most simple structure. Let's remember about Bertagneau and Tribandot rules. Then simple, then more radio resistant. Then difficult, then less radio resistant and more radio sensitive. So let's be easy. Maybe it's increase our radio sensitivities. And in the middle, all another organisms in the world. So determining effect and stochastic effect, I look at the down on this slide. Direct effects of radiation and indirect effects of radiation. Direct effects and indirects, for first, it's primary damage. If dose of radiation not so high, it may be repaired and everything okay without any clinical problem with this organ. Or after this primary damage, if dose higher, it may be cells dead. Or its dose not so high, it may be modified cell. Go next. Damage of organs after cells death. If some cells dead, it may be damage of organ, and if it's a lot of organs in organism, it may be death of organism. It's determining effect. It's dose dependent effect. We know after what dose we have death of organisms. It's absolutely 6 gray for human. It's another one to another. And what can happen after cells repair? After organism, it's not so. It's modified cells, somatic cells, and germ cells. It may be cancer or leukemia, or it may be heritability effects. Its name, stochastic effect. It's not dose-dependent effect. We don't know, even 21st century, we don't know what dose of radiation can go to this heritability effect. And there is a linear depend the effects from dose. The dose of ionizing radiation is high, the effect is bigger. There are determining effects and stochastic effects of ionizing radiation. Determining effects, depending from the level of ionizing radiation, there are consequences of action of ionizing radiation which manifest with exciting of some dose level. This effect depends from quantity of the absorbed dose. There are radiation burns, acute radiation disease, fibrosis, sterility, radiation cataract. And stochastic effect. Stochastic effects, its probability effects without dose level of ionizing radiation. Probability of erasing this effect is with small doses of ionizing radiation and increase with increase of ionizing influence. Stochastic effects are malignant tumors and genetics effects. And radiation chromasis. This is positive influence of small doses ionizing radiation. This phenomenon was opened by Atkinson in 1898. Stimulation growth of seeds plants, intensification of enzymes activity, stimulation life of bacterium and isolated cells of some mammal, and increase life duration some its. So, not all radiation so dangerous. Not all dose of radiation so dangerous. For example, in the department where I work during all my life, I have a chef. He is 84. He is good. He goes to work. It's not my chef now, but it was, and he goes to work every morning, 8 o'clock, even earlier than I. And he's okay. All time when we think about his good health and good look, we think that maybe it's positive effects of ionizing radiation in a small period, because we all work with radiation and we try protect us from radiation with most important rules: dose, distance, and time. Fetal radiation risk, very important, but there are radiation-related risks through pregnancy, which are related to the stage of pregnancy and absorbed dose. Radiation risks are most significant during orgasms in the first period, first trimester of pregnancy, and in the early fetal period, somewhat less in the second trimester and less in the third trimester. Yes, I think it's all for now. It's our last lesson for 5 course. For third course, I work in another program. I wish you be healthy, of course. I wish you use your free time for your knowledge. I wish you use some material from internet, some Oxford books or another, to look how explained biological effects of radiation and other lectures. It's all we have to find on internet, some books in open, and so on. And remember for all our life that now you're in a good period, you're healthy, your risks of some changing in your cells, it's small, but then older, then more risk. And what else? Maybe it's all. Have a good evening and good luck. Clean your hand. Take a distance between each other. Don't go to the supermarket if it's not necessary, and even there use protect. And luck for all of us. I miss for our offline lesson. It's easy like for me. I don't know like you, but like for me when I work with real students, not with my screen, it's all time easy to work. Good evening. Я не знаю, я остановила или нет. Я остановила экран.